Podcast at Ground Zero is presented to you by the Apocalypse. Because without the Apocalypse we wouldn't be doing this show.
Greetings, friends of the Apocalypse. This is Podcast at Ground Zero, your home for the Apocalypse for episode 85, Train to Busan presents Peninsula. I am the Apocalypse Nerd. He is Adam Baum Glancy. Welcome to the Wastelands.
Hello, folks.
Well, all right, folks. We both watched a movie this week. We watched, as you heard in the title, Train to Busan presents Peninsula. So we're going to review it, and we're going to do one of our normal terrible reviews, because our reviews basically just consist of telling you everything and spoiling everything for you.
Yes, you just get used to that. That is our MO. That's our modus operandi, is to ruin everything.
Because we are no Siskel and Ebert by any means. We are bad critics, but we'll tell you what. We'll tell you what's good and what's not good. Now, we watched this movie, and I had high hopes because it was the same director, but Scott
as the original Train to Busan, which is you got to admit, this is a film that demonstrated that the zombie genre is not played out if you do it well.
Yes, but as we found out, it wasn't the same writing partners, and it shows.
Yeah.
But before we start talking about that, just real quick, I have, as you've heard on one of the previous couple podcasts, we talked about the Ko-Fi site for support. I haven't had an official announcement yet, which I need to get out there and write that up so we have an official announcement about what everything is. But people have found it already, and we do appreciate the support that we have gotten already for that. But we just want to just mention a couple minor things, and I'm not going to drag it out. But this is definitely something that we don't want somebody to come in and be a white knight and save the podcast, because that is not what we are looking for. Okay, we don't need somebody to come in and drop hundreds of dollars to save us. That's not what this is about. This is just small donations if you want to help. Again, nobody has to do it.
Buy us a cup of coffee.
Just a cup of coffee. And most people have just bought us a cup of coffee. That's what we just want. If somebody feels like they've really enjoyed the show and they could just give us a little support, because again, if we could get this support and it could expand, it could cover expenses, some back expenses, we may try to expand and do some other things. Like maybe I could do some better web hosting and stuff like that. Who knows what we could do. And we've had some people do it, and we appreciate we have it. But you know what? Don't come in there, drop 20 cups of coffee or anything. Don't just don't do that. Because part of it is,
please.
Yeah, please. Because part of it is we don't. Be honest with you, I don't want anybody to be able to hold anything over our heads, because when people give you things, they feel like you owe them. And if somebody's dropping a large amount of money, we don't want that, okay? Because we don't want anybody to hold anything over heads, because we're not asking people to. It's like, you want a $3 cup of coffee, that's great, because we give you $3. We give you a cup of coffees a year's worth of entertainment. That's what we're giving you.
That's all we're looking for. Yeah,
that's all we're looking for. And and again, we appreciate the friends of the Apocalypse who have supported that already. So that's all I'm going to say about it. I will make some kind of, when I get a chance, official thing explaining everything, what's involved in it. But we do appreciate anybody who has helped support us so far. So thank you. Now, Peninsula. All right. Now, Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know that we've got any new Apocalypse this week outside of Peninsula. Do you have anything you wanted to drop?
Well, we try not to do that anymore. Because like when we did our last off-topic show, I noticed there was a bunch of shit that we missed that I forgot about.
Yeah.
But just to let you know before I forget, just some other upcoming episodes that we're going to do, just real quick, is a couple of things I have laid out for us to do is one of the people who contributed asked us if we could cover maybe a more contemporary post-apocalyptic RPG. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Even though we love Gamma World to death and we'll talk about it to nauseum, we really should be looking at, some more modern ones. So what we're going to do is Scott and I both have copies of Mutant Crow Classics because that's a newer one. Just came out within the last couple of years. Very popular. So we're going to read through the book a bit, try to get a better grasp of the rules and what it's all about. And we're going to review Mutant Crow Classics. That's an upcoming show we're going to do. We're also going to have, I don't know if you folks remember, we had Tom Wilson on. Tom Wilson did the Gamma Zines on the Kickstarter. We had him on for the first Kickstarter. 2 or 3 more have come out since then. And he also plans on having a new Gamma World adventure coming out this summer. So we're going to have Tom back on again. We're going to talk about, what we've missed, what's upcoming, what the future is. So we're going to talk to Tom a little bit. And then I'm also going to reach out to a gentleman who's going to be who's creating a Gamma World retro clone called Gamma X. I've kind of chatted with him on Facebook a little bit, but I'm going to hit him up more because they're going to be launching that Kickstarter in May, I believe. And we're going to want to get him on the show with the time of his Kickstarter coming out to talk about the Kickstarter. So everybody knows what it is, draw some attention to him, and just see what it's all about. So those are a few of the shows we have planned, and we'll get some other stuff as time goes on as well. Like we're going to do a Twilight 2000 Inspirations one as well. So we have like a good 3-4 in the lined up that we know we're going to do for sure. And as we get back into the groove, we'll get some more topics. So that's what we have coming up. And just again real quick, the Modifius finally put out a teaser about the Fallout RPG, not the one for Wastelayer, like the real RPG with the 2D20 system. So it's still on the horizon. They put a teaser, so I'm thinking that's probably going to come out sometime in the near future. So there you go.
All right, let's go dig into Train to Busan presents Peninsula.
All right, I had high hopes going into this one. Didn't expect it to be perfect. And like I said, I was a little disappointed in the movie. The premise is it is 4 years later, and the Peninsula has been quarantined. So it's got
at least, and this is an interesting point, everything south of the DMZ. North Korea, with its crazy-ass, hyper-militarized society and its endless minefields, facing an artillery facing south, has somehow staved off the zombie apocalypse. They make that point at the beginning that South Korea is gone, McCready. It is gone. And North Korea still exists.
Okay, and then the rest of the world is fine. So apparently this was isolated to South Korea, so it's kind of got that 28 days feel to it, where it's just like it was just England and Scotland, that whole area, and they quarantined it. So we have that situation. And the movie overall, and it's 4 years later. Also, 4 years after the events of Train to Busan. And the movie, it's really simple what the movie is. It's a heist film.
Yep. It is a heist. It is gangsters in Hong Kong look to score some Koreans who know their way around Korea before it got wiped out. Want them to rescue a bunch of U.S. currency that was taken out of a Korean bank. And the gangsters lost their truck the first time they tried this, possibly because they had, non-Koreans driving around Korea and screwed up. But, not knowing the streets, not knowing the turns or whatever. And so they've recruited a team of people who know the city that the truck is marooned in. They still know basically where the truck is. And these Hong Kong gangsters are offering these our protagonists basically, if you go in and get the money, you get to keep half of it, and you get to get your family out of refugee camps. You get to get out of, because everybody who was a surviving South Korean is currently adrift in Asia, living in inhospitable conditions in Japan or China or wherever they're allowed to get into, because they are an unwanted refugee minority now in Asia.
And they're treated like crap, you
Yeah.
know, and people are afraid of them because they think they're infected, yada yada yada. So, the movie, I'm trying to remember. I just watched it. It started off. Didn't it start off with events that were happening at the time?
Yes,
of the
it
event?
starts off right in the middle of it, where they, the main character in it is an actor named Dong-won Gang. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. His name is Dong-won Gang, but his character's name is Jung Sok, and he is a army captain in the South Korean Defense Forces, or the South Korean Army, and he is trying to get out of the collapsing Busan perimeter, where everyone's getting out by sea, and the United States Navy is there to try and evacuate everyone. It's all very Fall of Saigon looking, and he's trying to get his sister and his niece and his brother-in-law out of the country before the safe perimeter, the safe area around Busan, or Pusan as we called it. You know, Americans often call it because, you know, the Pusan perimeter from the Korean War. They're trying to get out before even the safe zone collapses.
So it starts off with that and sets up the characters for the advancement of 4 years, and we meet some other characters. This happens. Apparently, you know, things go wrong, and then it fast forwards to the future, and they're there. And, you know, some of the characters that we've met are getting into some nefarious activities, which are the Hong Kong gangsters, the brother-in-law, and the army captain. They get recruited with a team of other people, like some guy who's good with mechanics, somebody who was a taxi driver who knows the city.
Yeah.
So they get like their cast of characters who know, like, I drove a taxi in the city. I know how to get around. I could fix the cars or that need to get jump started and so forth. I'm the military captain guy who knows tactics and so forth. So they set up their cast of characters, promise them half the loot, and then we're on our way.
Yeah, set them up with the cell phones, the satellite phones. So they can call for extraction once they know they have the money. But they have a very narrow window to do this because there is some sort of a blockade going on around Korea to keep the infection inside. Because apparently going into Korea and looting it for valuable objects is something people do. It is just, you know, because everybody got out and the collapse came so fast, Korea is filled with valuable shit that's just laying there. And they are not, these guys are not the first people to try this, but, you know, they're clearly going after something super convertible. I mean, it's just U.S. currency that was held in a Korean bank, you know, because banks hold foreign currencies as hedges against inflation, that sort of thing. I mean, Korean currency would be worthless, but this is actually American dollars.
Yeah, so they drop them off, they go inside, they're trying to find the city, and I will give the movie credit because I felt the look of the ruined South Korea, particularly, you know, they're in Busan. I thought it looked good. I thought 4 years after the collapse, I think it looked good. I think they made the apocalypse look good.
When they're rowing up in their rubber rafts where they've been set off, you know, off the side of the ship, and they're rowing through the harbor, and the harbor is just one wrecked ship full of dead zombified refugees after another, and the harbor is just clogged with ships that have sunk and trash, and that looked good. That felt like, okay, I think we're watching a good movie, you know? It starts off pretty well.
Yep, just from that, but even when they get into the city, it's it's looking good. The way things are overgrown and the wreckages, it kind of looked like something out of, remember the old programs they had on History Channel, like, the World Without Us, how things overgrow. I think they did a good job on the look of 4 years after an apocalypse, Korea.
I agree. The city looked, and the thing is that because it's not really a war and it's not really a like a classic nuclear apocalypse, the city has a feeling less like a war zone or Hiroshima, and more like it's a bit like the Andrea Doria. Everyone just got up and fled right in the middle of everything they were doing.
Yes, that's exactly what it's like. It's like everybody just pulled up ship, literally, and they did. What we have is, the ruined city. So, but yeah, it looks pretty good. Like I said, it starts off good. Everything looks great. I had high hopes when it started, but then I started calling bullshit right away.
That's about the last part that was really good.
Because there is some bullshit that goes on here. They go in and they start a car. Now, if they had it looks like they had a portable charger.
Yes.
Jump starter, which would jump the car, and then the alternator would take over, and the car would run on the alternator. That's how things work. But the battery would have been so dead after 4 years. There's no way it would have charged at all, so they can never shut it off. The tires would have been flat, because when people store their cars long term in garages, guess what they do? They put them on jacks and they take the tires off, because they'll go flat, and the gasoline would have been gel. It would not have worked.
Oh yeah, the tanks would have dried up.
Yeah, after 4 years, I mean, if it was 4 months, I'd give them a pass.
Or if they showed them actually do something like having to carry jerry cans of gas or oil or lubricant to get that car. So if there'd been a whole thing about you bring the guy who's the mechanic so they can resurrect a vehicle, and showed more than just the portable battery charger, that'd have been fine. That would have been good.
But yeah, so I'm calling bullshit on that. So then they're driving around, which is fine. They're driving around the city. They're looking for the car. They find the truck, and then like I said, I'm going to try real hard for us not to do a step by step of the movie. But they find it. They find the truck, no problem, because they knew where it was. You see that there's people watching them. So there's people still in the city, and they get the truck. They take off, but then, of course, they have a problem, because there's still tons of zombies there. They do some other stuff, which was, they had some smart ideas in the film. When the zombies are running, the guy shoots at other cars to set off car alarms to distract the zombies. Great idea. Great idea.
They've got silencers. They're in the dark at night deliberately, because the zombies can't see. This city is completely blacked out. The zombies can only see as well as people, so the humans are wearing night vision to get around, and they got silenced weapons, and so when they have a horde coming their way, they use the car alarms to distract the horde. Great idea. That was
all smart stuff. But then I get into the bullshit meter again. The batteries, after 4 years, would have been dead. It would not have worked. It's like, yes, suspension of disbelief that they're zombies, but there has to be some minor grounding in reality, and that wouldn't have worked.
A lot of this could have been fixed, and a lot of things we're going to go into that kind of fail the sniff test could have been fixed by making the time that people had been gone shorter.
Yes.
If they just had said a year, 18 months, whatever. It didn't have to be. I mean, there's one part of the film where I get why they have to make it 4 years, and we'll get to that. Mostly, I kept thinking, all the things that I'm having a grumpy, moment with are stuff that would be fixed by just not making it a 4-year gap.
If it was if it was 6 to 12 months, I would have let a lot of it slide.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of it slide.
And certainly, they get our team gets hung up because other humans in the ruins fuck them up.
Yes.
And that was sort of an interesting thing. And I'm going to throw this out because it has nothing to do with how the movie actually turned out. Because they went out of their way to explain how North Korea had survived the zombie apocalypse, and that the zombies didn't get north and didn't spread the infection into North Korean territory, I was thinking, holy shit, there's these North Korean special forces who've come down south to establish secret bases in South Korea so they can claim the entire peninsula for themselves. So that they can, whether it's do their own looting or salvaging, or this is how North Korea reunites the peninsula, rather than fight America and fight South Korean army. They've come down as part of a plan to, they're going to conquer the place. And so we're going to run into bad guys who are North Korean communists, special forces, or soldiers, right? I thought that's where it was going. Sadly, it did not go there.
No,
it did not.
So there is another group there. And again, they do some smart stuff with vehicles, lights, flares. They have a lot of good tactics going on, and they capture the vehicle and one of the characters, because the other two out of the four characters, aren't captured for other reasons, and one of them escapes. So we find out that this group of the people who captured them aren't just marauders; they are ex-military who were supposed to be there to help the populace, South Korean military. So they're there, and then there's some groups of, apparently there's other people there. They call them wild dogs or something. What do they call them?
It was either wild dogs or lone wolves.
I think lone wolves might have been it. So they, because apparently there's people 4 years later still surviving, not knowing that the outside world exists.
Which is kind of a problem because while phones are down, cell towers are down, all that kind of stuff is down, radio still works, and they should be able to pick up radio waves from the outside world because it's easier to receive than to transmit. I get that they can't transmit to the outside world and say, help, we're still here. But the idea that they can't hear BBC News Voice or America, Voice of America or something playing in the background from, radio stations on Korean islands off the coast, because Koreans got a lot of coastal islands. None of that's happening. They have no clue that the rest of the world has survived. Apparently nobody's even looked up, like in 28 Days Later, and seen the contrails of a high-altitude aircraft.
Because that would be there. So, but one of these other groups of survivors does kind of address that. Like, the crazy old grandpa does have a shortwave radio, and he is receiving and he's talking to people who aren't there, or at least that's how the way they depict that he's not there. But, he has an actual shortwave. So he'd be able to receive radio traffic and transmit. And if we have blockades around there, the ships would be able to pick up on the transmission to know that there's people in there. So yeah, I'm kind of calling bullshit on that as well.
Yeah, there certainly are group of ex-military. There's like 200 of them. I mean, it's a good bunch of guys. And they have I guess it's a shopping mall that they've taken over, a compound. And their teams are out scavenging for supplies. The idea that they didn't try and get a radio message out and call for an extraction in 4 years seems a little weird.
Oh yeah, they went all Lord of the Flies immediately. It's all, this group is all Lord of the Flies. They've degraded down to, the commander there kind of reminds me of Rhodes.
I was going to say the exact same thing. He is Captain Rhodes from Day of the Dead, only with less screaming.
Yep. Not in touch with anything anymore, just kind of getting by. And like I said, they're all ex-military, so they should have had some military equipment, radios, transmitters, and also they're so organized with their groups on sending people out at daytime. They could have scrounged up communication equipment because they're like waiting for the rescue. They're waiting for So I just think the only thing I can explain them not trying to contact anybody, again, they think that the world collapsed, as far as they know, but early on, why they didn't try, they just fucking went native, they must have went native immediately, right out of the gate, because they are all fucking bug shit crazy.
Yes. Yes, they are.
So there's a lot of action in the movie. There's a lot of car scenes. It's kind of like Train to Busan presents the Tokyo Drift zombie movie. It's kind of like it's that's what it seems like. It seems like the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, just driving around the cities and sliding cars around all over the place. A
Yeah,
lot of these chase scenes.
let's be honest, it's more like Grand Theft Auto
Yeah.
because the vast majority, 90% of the driving action that we see on this film is computer generated.
Oh yeah,
Vast majority of it.
I was gonna get to it. A lot of this stuff is graphics, CGIs, and it looks terrible. It's obviously it looks like so much, but then there's some shots that look like miniatures. They actually it looks like, oh, they made the effort to make this whole panning scene of the city in miniature, which I appreciate more having practical effects. Even though I know it's a miniature, it looks better than CGI. But or maybe this is CGI. Maybe they made the CGI look like miniatures. I don't know, but most of the CGI was just horrible. Horrible.
It wasn't good, and it was most of it was done at night, so it would look less terrible, but it was still not great.
Didn't help. And again, there's other smart things in here. They use night vision, telescopes, or like binoculars a lot, distance, be quiet, distraction devices, remote. Mm-hmm. See, I don't know why the girl, again, spoiler, again, we're spoiling. She uses like remote control cars to attract zombies and move and try to get them around. Okay. Mm-hmm. In this day and age, because again, it happened 4 years ago, personal drones were predominant back then. Why didn't they have drones instead of remote control cars? Because she had like a collection of remote control cars. What about drones that are everywhere? I think that would have worked better in a more modern context because she could then keep it above them, because running on the ground, you run into the problem of which they ran into is tipping over.
Oh yeah,
running into debris.
RC cars are notorious for flipping over and not staying, especially because they're driving around the ruins of the city, where the city is covered with bits and pieces of rubble and trash and junk.
A small personal drone would have done much better because she can navigate through it, get it out of their reach, like draw them to an area and just have it go up just out of their reach, so they couldn't get to it. Would have been much smarter, I think, because there would have been drones. They would have been able to find drones too. If they could find RC cars, they could find fucking drones.
Well, that more counts as a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Also, I think the reason they wanted an RC car was that they wanted problems to show up as part of the plot, like the car tips over. There was that bit where the car tipped over right next to where they were hiding. And now they've got a problem that comes out of nowhere, a problem they could have avoided, but the writer didn't want them to avoid the problem, that they wanted them to experience the problem. And so there's that kind of stupid writer tricks where the writer deliberately makes a choice to make it harder for the characters because they can't think of the writer can't think of a better way to screw up their characters' lives, so they go with an easy option.
Well,
the car tips over.
They still could have done it with the drones. They could have hit a piece of debris. They still could have done the same thing. It's just a missed opportunity. Was it a bad mistake? No. I mean, it wasn't as glaring as, dead car batteries after 4 years. It was just like, it would have been better if they could have done that. It would have seemed more like, logical to me. But here's the other big problem with this film. It is so over dramatic.
Oh yeah. The last 10 minutes of the film take 30 minutes to get through because the director goes into slow motion mode with giant, dramatic, heartfelt, emotional, orchestral music playing, tons of violins, kids, lots of sweeping violin sounds what?
Crying, lots of crying and regrets and
oh god.
Oh, it's so like, oh my god. Okay. It's got some. I mean, it has some problems, and part of it too. With the group of the crazy military guys is they've done things like set up games with throwing survivors in with zombies, which we've seen that type of thing before. And I think they do a reasonable job with that. There's problems with rationing and food. Like there's plenty of food, but they're rationing it. All typical stuff. I mean, like I said, it's not all bad. I mean, I think the movie had some potential it definitely had a lot more potential than they didn't fulfill those shoes.
Now that's the biggest thing that's a problem with Peninsula, is that it has a lot of potential. It keeps edging up to the potential, but what we get is a fairly lackluster zombie film. I mean, Train to Busan demonstrated that the zombie genre isn't dead. You could take Peninsula and go, you know what? No, it is dead.
Yeah.
This would be the kind of film someone would pull out and say that the zombie genre doesn't have anything new or interesting to offer us. Because all the things that were in Train to Busan, the connection to Korean mass transit culture, the connections to showing class structure in Korea.
Oh yeah, the caste system, all that. So it's all very well done. Well, you know what?
But it doesn't appear anywhere to me.
Yeah.
In Peninsula.
Yeah, and the thing is, what's really going to put the nail in the coffin? You said this one shows that it's dead. There is actually, they're going to be doing a American version of Train to Busan.
Because we don't have trains. That's not our culture.
The Northeast has train culture. People commute all the time, but it's not on the same scale as Korea, Japan, the Asian Pacific Rim has a lot of, has train culture because that's the main mass transit. They have it up in the Northeast quarter, but it's still not the same because a lot of their trains are high speed because of the distance between cities. Yeah. So it works better there. I just, so unless they put it in the Northeast, even doing it in California or even Seattle, Oregon area, where you are, where they have trains, it's not the same.
No, we don't have it like they do in the Asian Pacific Rim. Absolutely not. And I gotta tell you, what it reminds me of? I was listening to a voiceover for The Devil Rides Out, which is an old Hammer horror film, and Christopher Lee, who's in the film when it was made back in the '60s, he's commenting about Dennis Wheatley, the author of The Devil Rides Out, and how much he enjoyed those Dennis Wheatley supernatural, occult mystery stories. And somebody during the commentary mentions, oh yeah, I hear the Americans are going to remake The Wicker Man. And it's like, wait, you're going to make a movie about Celtic pre-Christian paganism in America? And Chris Ridley's like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It doesn't work.
The idea of importing Train to Busan to America, I feel the exact same way. That doesn't make any sense.
It won't work well. But like we said overall, like you said, just to be more of the critics hat, the acting was the acting good? No, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good.
Nothing stand out.
Nothing stand outish. There's, a lot of the themes of the film are, kind of like, there's revenge, there's redemption, a lot of redemption in this film. Redemption is a big theme in this film for several of the main characters. Or at least our one main character, redemption is his big thing. So
making up for the things that you did when it was all about, I have to survive. And there's a big part of the early part of the film is doing ruthless, unethical things or unempathetic things to survive, and it didn't matter, right? There's some people get screwed over in the struggle to survive, and then the people who did the screwing doesn't benefit them. They come to horrible ends anyways. And so having survived, but lost a lot in the process, the question is, was it worthwhile to have been such a bastard and yet things ended badly? So are they going to turn around now and try and make up for those previous events? And that's a lot of what's going on in the last half of the film.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and by the way, folks, it's a 2-hour film, and it feels like a 2-hour film.
Yeah, bad news.
It's a long movie. Like I said, the last quarter of the movie is all about this redemption, and that's where a lot of the over dramatic stuff happens. Not that we're opposed to dramatic stuff, but it's not done good.
I'm going to say melodramatic.
It's more melodramatic.
It's melodrama, and it's like and now we're going to affect your emotions. And it's like this big announcement through the use of slow-mo, the music, like you're supposed to be emotionally engaged now. And I'm like, if you got to announce how emotionally engaged I have to be with your music and your slow-mo, that tells me you've done nothing else to emotionally engage me. That's a fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just, I'm sorry, but that's a fail.
And I'm thankful that I was able to rent it for free through my local library system. My local library system had Train to Busan, had Peninsula in their digital library, and fortunately for me, the system that they use called Hoopla for digital stuff has an app for Apple TV, so I was able to download the app, log into my Hoopla account, which is my library account, and I was able to watch it on my TV. So thank you, Volusia County Library Systems. So didn't have to pay for it. You know, I'm sure I could have been able to find it other places, but it's like,
it was $5 on Amazon Prime or wherever I ended up renting it. So yeah, I paid my $5. I do not believe I might have gotten $5 worth out of it, but I'm going to subtract some value for how long it was. Yeah. They spend a lot of time telling a story it should not have taken that long to tell. It's a disappointment. And one of the reasons it's a disappointment, sadly, is because it just cannot stand up to Train to Busan. It just can't.
It is a super weak sequel. This just not good. So yeah. I think that's all unless you have anything else to really say, I think that's all we really need to say about this film. Because again, I don't want to get into every nauseating detail of the film, but like I said, a lot of the main points is, visually, there's some good visualization in this film, especially of the environments. But then there's a lot of bad visualization with the environments, like the car chase scenes and stuff.
I agree. There are moments, but it just does not hold up. It just doesn't hold up, and it doesn't hold up maybe because the heist isn't compelling enough.
Very boring.
The heist with the money is just not compelling enough it wasn't for me. So I think that is also part of the problem, I guess. There are certain things about the heist that, like in Train to Busan, right? We see a lot of what husbands and fathers are supposed to do for their families, right?
Yeah.
There's a number of characters in that where, one of the messages is, sort of is like, you're a dad. You're supposed to do everything for your family. You're supposed to sacrifice and do the hard things so your offspring don't. And one of the sort of things that is set up into the beginning of Peninsula is that many of the characters lose their families. And so we have these two characters who've lost their family at the beginning. So part of me is like, what are they risking their lives for?
Yeah, what's their motivation?
It's just the money. I mean, it's not like they're doing it to get their family. I mean, if they had a thing where their families were in refugee camps and living in horrible conditions, maybe the heist would have meant something, because we saw how their loved ones are suffering and how they're willing to take this risk, not for themselves, but for other people. I don't know. As a result of that, because it was very nihilistic. They had almost nothing to live and fight for.
Yeah, it was just they were fighting for, hey, we get this money, we could buy our refugee status and get out of the gutter, which is motivation, but it's not the same driving strong motivation that we had in the first film.
Yeah, agreed. So I think that it suffers from not giving the characters, sort of robbing of them of their motivation in the first act, and then leaving them a little adrift. Now, there is a bit where our captain sort of finds the survivors in the ruins of the city and sort of takes them on, but it's as his own responsibility. But it's a little like Ripley and Newt in Aliens, where Sigourney Weaver's character projects the identity of her daughter who died while she was away in cold sleep onto this child. Okay, that was cool back in 1980 or whatever. 86, but we've seen that before.
That's where the redemption part of it. He's trying to redeem himself for past acts, blah blah blah. But it's just wasn't written as well as the first film. Bottom line. Bottom line. So,
not a good report. We're sorry we can't bring you victory on this one.
No, you know what? We can't always bring you victory, but we're trying to save you. Like I said, on a scale of 1 to 5 mushroom clouds, I'm gonna have to give this a one mushroom cloud. That's it.
Yeah, maybe a 2. I mean, I don't know. Is 1 the mushroom clouds we give out for those like Filipino Mad Max ripoffs that are filmed in quarries and outside of Manila?
Yeah. All right. 2.
2.
It's not the it is not the bottom of the barrel. Okay, I'll concede on that point. Not the bottom of the barrel. I would even give it a halfway mark. I'd go less than half because there are a few redeeming, cool ideas in it, but not enough to really make me recommend the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So
this is below average Apocalypse, kids.
So I'm going to give it 2 mushroom clouds out of 5.
That seems fair to me.
So, all right, folks. So that's Train to Busan presents Peninsula. We're not going to say anything more about it because you've heard it all these last 40 or so minutes. Like I said, we have stuff lined up for the future, so we will be back soon. And as always, thank you for your time with us. We appreciate it. We will see you in the wastelands.
Adios.
This episode of Podcast at Ground Zero has been brought to you by Hobo Soup. Hobo Soup, when you have to make do with what you got. Now available in apocalypse size. Keep up to date with us by visiting podcastatgroundzero.com and subscribe to the blog via email.